If you are receiving this transmission, you are the Resistance.
Welcome back to the War Room. Roger Stone is actually live right now on the Alex Jones Facebook page, but this is Owen Schroyer. Dr. Steve Pieczenik is my guest, an expert on regime change, an expert on false flags. So naturally, we go to him to talk about what has happened in Syria and what to me looks like the beginning or the brink of World War III. We hope we can avoid it. Dr. Pieczenik, I think that the story is already there. The narrative is already there. I mean, what do you think is going on here? What do you think the real story is? Who's pulling the strings? Is this John Bolton's fault? Has Trump been fooled? Is he going along with it? Dr. Steve Pieczenik, your take.
My take is that we have been involved in a false flag for quite some time. I spent over 3 weeks in Syria before all of this occurred, before the wars broke out, and I can assure you Bashar Assad is not interested in chemical warfare. I spent 3 weeks in Iran. I know the Iranians, they're not interested in chemical warfare. Russia's not interested in chemical warfare. The only ones who had an interest in creating a false flag were the Israelis, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. The reason for that is very simple. We also had some U.S. Special Forces who were involved, but it's not an accident that you have a false flag on the anniversary of a supposed other gas attack. Now, most of the time, this is not relevant. What is relevant is the fact that we have a problem in the Middle East where Israel now is going into a full-scale war with Iran, and that's being hidden. Israelis are trying to make sure that we cover their track. We brought back our own special forces. We've lost a few men. There's 2 planes, or the so-called planes that crashed in Djibouti. That was a cover for the fact that we've lost several airmen and several brave warriors who I suspect died in Syria fighting either ISIS, Al-Qaeda, or even Turkey. It is an absolute mess in there. I don't think Trump really knows what's going on. I think he has John Bolton there as just a figurehead. My hope is that John Bolton will not do what he normally does, distort intelligence and insist on going into a war, considering the fact I've known him very well. I get along with him. But I don't forget he's a draft dodger, and I didn't forget he distorted the intelligence and distorted the fact we went into Iraq. So I think Trump is smart enough to say, look, I've got Bolton here just to change the news the news headlines because I'm tired of whatever her name is, the hooker. And John Kelly is unfortunately being preempted by Larry Kudlow, and I think Trump is really kind of in a vortex right now of personal grief because you have the FBI and Mueller coming in on his lawyer, Bob Cohen, and I'm not clear why that's occurring when you have confidentiality between client and the president. And at the same time, the president doesn't have an advisors whom he could trust. So Jared Kushner and Ivanka are coming back in again. Jared really doesn't know the Middle East. He's pro-Israel. He's grew up with Bibi. Bibi is out of control, but now we have a situation which really can get into a very serious mess. That's not including the fact that what I wrote about 3 days ago when Trump placed that $100 billion tariff, he basically created a continuation of the economic warfare that China's had with us since 1999, with currency manipulation, trade manipulation, underwriting all of their exports. So we're in a vortex of major, major change. I don't want to say this is a chaos. I don't want to really call it a crisis now, but it is a serious problem, and how Trump will react to it will be important. At this point in time, I would hope he would go to Mattis, General Mattis, who would give him the sage advice that we should stay out of Syria. Whatever troops we have there is to maintain stability and not to engage with either the Assad regime, which will not be taken down. From the day I went there 10 years ago and I resigned at the Council on Foreign Relations over this issue because the CIA representatives were total idiots and decided to go into Syria, and that was, of course, under the jurisdiction of Hillary, Obama, and Kerry, all of whom failed. There will never be regime change under Assad. He will be there as long as he needs to be there. Russia will be the strongest ally he has in there, and Turkey will be the dominant forces. I said it on this show 5 years ago that Turkey will be the dominant Sunni force, Saudi Arabia will be subordinate, Iran will be the dominant Shiite force, and Syria will remain under the jurisdiction of Russia, and Russia will be the superpower. We do not belong in the Middle East. I think General Petraeus has always said it correctly, and unfortunately he paid for it, where he said Israel is a strategic liability. And I can say that again and again. Israel is a strategic liability. And Israel is creating a lot of the conflagration along with Saudi Arabia in order to force us to come into that situation. The best that Trump can do is to remember his base, people like me and other vets who do not want to go to war. It's the neocons who've never been in war who are more than happy to go to war, specifically John Bolton. I like John Bolton personally, but I don't trust him, and I know he's avoided the draft, and I know he's a war hawk. But like the others who he had a report to, Carl Ford and Richard Armitage, whom I have worked with, who have been in the intelligence world, who are very honest, they consider John Bolton to be a sucker up and a kicker down. In other words, he's self-aggrandizing, he's out of control, and he really doesn't know what he's doing. So we've got a problem in the White House, and unfortunately, John Kelly is not strong enough to intervene at this point in time. Other than that, the world is doing well. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't want to be the doomsday scenario, but this is literally what I see happening today. And I wish there was somebody there who could really help guide the president through this situation, because I think the predominant issue in his mind is this issue of Mueller and his henchmen, the FBI, coming in and going through his lawyers.
Well, let's get to that. Let's get to that in the next segment, because I want to focus on. I kind of want to respond to your overall message there that was obviously very, very laden in pertinent information. You keep saying, you know, Trump in a vortex, in the middle of the storm, if you will. And to me, what I kind of see happening as a backdrop is like Trump gets in, he's a real guy, and he sees the playing field that he's inherited. And so he tries to address each situation with solutions, which is unfounded in Washington. Nobody actually wants solutions. They love these problems because that's how they continue their employment. That's how they continue to make money with this gravy train in D.C. So Trump actually gets in and he tries to tie up these loose ends and actually provide solutions. And essentially the whole thing collapses around him now. The whole house of cards collapses around him. You know, Saudi Arabia and Israel, there's shift-ups and make-ups there. Iran now and Russia are starting to come together while the fake news is trying to pull Trump and the United States away from Russia. Then they're trying to instill their regime change in Syria, which is only going to make things worse with Russia. And then Trump's just trying to balance out a trade budget with China that's been just destroying us in trade for the last 2-3 decades. And now it's like it's all collapsing. The whole house of cards is collapsing in on him. And the deep state is basically saying, go along with our agenda, or we're going to let the house of cards collapse on you. And it seems like, to your analysis, that all the high energy Trump and all the momentum is kind of getting suffocated in the house of cards right now.
That's pretty accurate. The reason for that has to do with his own personality. What Trump has said and what's been espoused for some time is let Trump be Trump. I have no issue with that until there is a need for control and command and control for the rest of the system. In other words, Trump is not alone in the White House anymore. The president of the United States is not a person. He represents the nation state. And the nation state has certain variables and entities that have to be addressed: the political, the military, the economic, the strategic, the tactical, all of which cannot be consumed or expressed through the dynamics of one person. He wants to do what's right. The problem is right now, he is off balance because the focus is domestic, while at the same time, as you said, he's getting hit on the foreign affairs side. Now,
all right, let's talk about the Mueller FBI raid on the other side. This guy, Mueller, Lord Mueller, he's totally unhinged. Welcome back to the War Room. I'm your host, Owen Schroyer. Dr. Steve Pieczenik is my guest. And you said something, Dr. Pieczenik, in the last segment that, well, I don't think you actually meant it. I think you kind of said it in jest, but I want to go back to it. You said you're not sure why the FBI raided Trump's attorney's offices for the Stormy Daniels documents. Well, I think you do know why. I think we all know why, because Robert Mueller has nothing, and he's broadening. He'll broaden all the way to, Omicron Planet 9 in the galaxy Omicron 4, if he can't find anything on planet Earth. So he goes and he digs up a bunch of documents in relation to Stormy Daniels. But it has nothing to do with Russian collusion. Why is he doing it? I think that everybody knows why. That's because he's looking for anything and everything he can do to try to get people to turn on Trump, and eventually the ultimate goal is to get Trump out of office.
No, I didn't mean that I don't know why. I know exactly why, because I had asked for his resignation a long time ago, and I was against Mueller because of his involvement in the 9/11 false flag. So he's not part of our government officially. From my point of view, working with the FBI and Mueller, they really became something that was initially irrelevant. Now it's become a disturbance. And what I'm really getting at is that Trump has to reach out right now to Putin. He has to reach out to Assad. He has to reach out to President Xi and do what he does best, which is personal diplomacy. Because right now he doesn't have Pompeo. He doesn't have all of the elements at his hand to deal with what's going on in the foreign affairs. In terms of domestic affairs, what I really was getting at is why he didn't fire him a long time ago. I had said it months ago when he was appointed that he should have been fired. Mueller's always been compromised. He was compromised from the day he came in. He was compromised on 9/11. He has the background again at the Bushes, went to St. Paul's, went to Yale or Princeton, and then came up the greasy ladder and took over the FBI on 9/11 or a week before, and he was involved. And so I saw his presence there as an atonement for his sins, but really I think there was no reason to keep him there. I thought for a while Trump would understand that there might have been some mutual accommodation, but it was clear to me that Mueller really wasn't very effective, and we were wasting our time and millions of dollars over something that wasn't really relevant to the running of the government. I think Trump still should fire Mueller. I think he should fire Rodenstein and have a massacre, just what Nixon did. And basically,
but he always says how corrupt they are, and he doesn't fire them.
Well, that's you and I have the same problem. I do not understand why this has been going on for 2 years or more. And we've said it, you said it, Alex has said it, Roger said it, and I don't understand why he has to tolerate all this nonsense for 2 years. That's why I said, not kiddingly, I wasn't facetious. I said this should have been eliminated as a problem immediately. I don't care what Senator Grassley says. I don't care what the issue about impeachment is. He's not going to be impeached if he can address the issues of the base. We're part of the base. We do not want a war in Syria. We do not want a war with Russia. We do not want a war with China. We want our farmers to get all the soybeans they can sell. We want an infrastructure. We want a tax cut. These are the issues that he came on, and those are the issues he will remain. If he doesn't.
And I think that, and while there's all this confusion and the house of cards is collapsing on him, if you will, with all of the craziness, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Iran, Russia, the fake news, Syria, and he's kind of boxed in right now, it feels like that is the only solution, Dr. Pieczenik, is to actually implement the policy of put America first. That is his only solution right now. Going to war in Syria, intervening in Syria, that's not putting America first. Putting whatever Israel foreign policy or whatever policy they want to have, an agenda, that's not putting America first. The only agenda that saves Trump from this right now is put America first.
I agree with you, but putting America first means he must fire Mueller. He must fire Rodenstein. He has the power. He has the ability. He has to trust his own judgment in being able to clean out the house. I do not understand why he kept them there as long as he had. It may have been delay tactics or whatever, but at this crucial point of time, he has to eliminate the domestic irritation in order to address the external problems, which really do impact on our infrastructure, on our businesses, on our farmers, and all of the people who work in steel, aluminum, and the other companies. We have to get the stock market stabilized. It cannot keep on swinging up and down. And the irony of ironies is Zuckerberg is really a poor leader. If I were in a hedge fund, I would have thrown Zuckerberg out a long time ago. And
well, poor leader, great puppet.
Well, that's correct. But the point is, if you look at the stock, it's a junk stock. It basically has what we have an E rating. E rating means AD. That means that most corporation investment firms do not want to touch Facebook. It basically is a junk stock. It is poorly run. It has a very poor cash flow. It has a very poor growth rate. And Zuckerberg should have been thrown out as the CEO a long time ago. It's nothing comparable to Amazon or even Google. When you look at the FANGs, the most effective stock there is Netflix, a movie company. It is, and the worst stock is Facebook. So from a point of view of financial viability, I don't even know why the Congress is wasting their time. The hedge fund boys know exactly what they're doing in Silicon Valley. I knew them before, and I would say fire the man, turn it around, and get Facebook to be relevant to the 21st century. It's a 20th
Well,
century.
it's a perfect distraction. It's a perfect distraction from Mueller going rogue, and it's a perfect way to steal the narrative and act like they actually care about whatever's going on Facebook. Of course, they actually don't. That's why they didn't care during the Obama years. Now, all of a sudden, they care during the Trump years. But I want to get back to the big story here in the final couple minutes, Dr. Pieczenik. I just go down a line of thinking. I say, I mean, obviously, to me, this attack in Syria is a false flag. I assume you're of the same premise. So
Yeah,
going with that premise, you say, why would they false flag? Okay, and it seems the apparent answer is to get Assad out of power, to have a regime change to remove Assad. Okay, well, why would they want to remove Assad? Well, I guess they'd want to remove Assad because then Russia wouldn't have control of Syria. I mean, is that what this is all about? Is that ultimately the line of thinking here?
Well, that's part of it. The more serious problem is that Israel is now attacking the points where Iran is. I had warned on your show repeatedly that Israel would start attacking the Iranian positions all the way from Latakia into the northern sphere of Iran, of Syria, and as well as going into Iran. So Israel has two fronts now that it has to confront. It has not been prepared for this war. It knows very well that it's looking for a war, and it has a problem dealing with Iran. And Iran is pushing now on Israel. Hezbollah is pushing on Israel. And the false flag was a way of Israel always trying to get the United States into its corner. I said it's been a strategic deficit, and it's been a problem for us, Israel, but it's been held up by Ginza, AIPAC, and all the nonsensical American Jews who never really served our country, where you have two different, passports. But Israel is a liability for us strategically. We cannot go in there. We let Russia handle Israel. Bibi runs to Putin all the time when he has a problem. Bibi is a little baby. The country acts like a little baby. It is basically a dependent country on the United States and Russia. Let Russia come in, handle the problems. There were no people who got killed. There was no chemical attack. It's, again, these false flags that we had in 9/11, and it's not an accident that we had John Bolton, who came out of 9/11, out of the false flags, sent our boys into harm's way, made sure that some of our boys were killed as well as other people, and now he's back again. My suspicion is that Trump brought it in just to change the headlines, and he thought he could get along with John Bolton. But my suspicion is that Trump cannot get along with John Bolton, and within a few weeks, Bolton will be leaving too. Unfortunately, Kelly is leaving, and the one person that I have to rely on, and I have the greatest faith, is General Mattis. Mattis is a serious man. He thinks like Marcus Aurelius. He's a rational man. He's a smart man. He understands that we do not go to wars for reasons that are not commensurate with our national security. The Middle East is not commensurate with our national security. We are now an oil exporter. We do not need oil from Dubai. We do not need it from Saudi Arabia. We do not need it from any other country in the Middle East. We don't need Israel. Israel really has not been an effective ally. So what happens is Russia takes over. They take care of baby Israel. They take care of baby Iran, and they take care of Syria. And then they have their position. We, in turn, have to deal with Asia and the economic warfare that we have going on, which is a far more serious problem, where our farmers
Dr. Pieczenik, final question. You got 10 seconds. Has Jared Kushner done anything to help peace in the Middle East?
No. He's been a disaster. He's fostered the notion that Israel is important to us. He should have been thrown out a long time ago.
All right, there it is, Dr. Steve Pieczenik, the expert on this. Thank you for joining me as always and for your expertise. We'll be right back with more of the Zuckerberg hearing on the other side. I think they're blaming Russia right now. I can hear it.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
Introducing Cellforce by InfoWars Life. Cellforce focuses on mitochondria efficiency and protection. Mitochondria produce over 95% of your energy. They are your body's cellular engines. Cellforce helps promote your cellular energy production by supporting mitochondria, much like a cellular engine overhaul. Because when your mitochondria don't run at 100% efficiency, then they start producing reactive oxygen species. Top scientists agree that aging is most likely caused by cellular damage, resulting from these reactive oxygen species. The antioxidants found in Cellforce are some of the most powerful available on the market. The stronger the antioxidant, the better its ability to scavenge for these reactive oxygen species and other free radicals. Boost, protect, and adapt with Cellforce from InfoWars Life. Head to InfoWarsLife.com or call 1-888-253-3139.